Hello, everybody. How are you today? I'm glad to be back streaming. Sorry I missed my stream on Friday, but I was driving and could not be helped. Could not be helped, won't be helped, wouldn't be helped? Yeah, something like that. Anyway, glad to be back at it now. What I was going to stream on Friday was another roundup of the OSR subreddit. So let's just get to it and see what we can see. So here we are. I'm looking at it on a hot. I don't know if we ever figured out whether it was better to look at hot or new. One of the other tabs. We'll just stick with hot, I guess, and I will go ahead and refresh the page. I believe it has refreshed. All right. So we've got, I guess, right up front, the Thief. Everyone's favorite class to house rule, posted by Better Legends a couple hours ago. I suppose let's take a look. Looks like it maybe is an image. Oh, it's very cute. It's really pretty well designed. I don't know if this is meant to be an actual character sheet kind of thing or just an illustration, but it is well done. I like the D4. I like the crouching guy with the patched pants and a knife in his hand with sort of a little Red Riding Hood kind of cloak on their inventory. All right, let me just see. Let's see, where can we find this out in the wild? Okay, so it's a oh no. Better Legends. Gave a bad link. Where's that thief? We just saw it. Oh, he's got some cool stuff in here. Might have to check this out in more detail. I'll pop this in the chat so you can check out Better Legends. Maybe it's in his web store. Here it is. Okay, that's very cool. So you can get it as a physical poster. I'm gonna post Better Legends website in the chat. So if you're getting this later, there we go. That's cool, but there's not really any content there, but it is nice. All right, let's go back here. Cool, and let me make sure they get an upvote. There we go, upvote your Redditors. So it wasn't quite what I was looking for. Terrence, what are we looking at? I thought it might have been some house rules for the thief, but apparently it's called a risograph, but I guess it's really a poster. I don't know. Someone can explain if someone knows the difference between a risograph and I don't know what a risograph is, but it's this. It's kind of a cool illustration of a thief, but I was hoping it was something more with a question or something like that, but it wasn't. You've got something here, horoscope design. I'm guessing this is a product. Dare I look? All right, I dare. I guess this is a thing people are doing. They're putting their posts as images and then linking to them in the comments. Where does this live? Like we can take a quick look. This is something they're calling this by horoscope design, the cursed tomb. System agnostic. Translates. Oh, it's Portuguese. Is it in Portuguese? Doesn't look like it. Anyway. Oh, it's in both. The Tomb of the Necromancer remains completely unprotected, and its secrets are about to be unleashed. The Cursed Tomb is a system-agnostic adventure module you can play with D&D 5e, Dungeon Crawl Classics, or any other OSR rule set. Get to know our dark fantasy sword and sorcery games. So I guess they have their own system. I think that sentence, it kind of implies that D&D 5e is OSR, which of course it's not, but whatever, we know. Everybody knows. Nobody who knows what OSR is going to look at that. Okay. Well, I'm not going to get into it. Has a nice, I like the look. It does have a name your price. I'll drop this in the chat if other folks are interested in that. On itch. All right, let's see. Hopefully, we can get to something that's actually it's got some meat on its bones. And look, I'm fine with folks, posting links to their stuff. Goodness knows, I post links to my stuff everywhere and anywhere. So I got nothing but love for people doing it. But if it doesn't have something we could talk about, then it's not useful to me at the moment. We got an Appendix N collection. I'm going to upvote that one. If that would get I just feel like that's too much and too deep. Okay, here's I made a thing. Recently released a new game about rodent zombies defending the ancient temple that those damned adventurer keeps attacking. Okay, it seems like maybe you take on the role of a zombie. That could be cool. This is looks like another image. I like the name Maggot King, so take an upvote. Let's see. How would we get where's some stuff we can actually look at? Oh, here we go. Factions and living factions and living worlds. No fun allowed. Hey, thanks for coming. I post my links all over too. Yeah, you have to. I mean, it's one of those unfortunate things. I don't like the marketing aspect of being a creator. I wish that I could just do stuff. And then, like I see with folks who have way more larger audiences than I do, they have people that go out there and proselytize for them and push their links all over the place. And then you can sit back and just let the wonderful organic folks find you. But it doesn't work that way. Maybe at some point you get there, you achieve a Matt Colville like status, and you can just go into threads and people will just post it and he doesn't have to touch it. But for a small fry, you got to just get out there and be unafraid to drop your links in and take whatever blowback comes with that. Okay, so this was posted by Frickle Frack Rock. Man, if he'd gone Frickle Fraggle Rock, he was so close to brilliance with that name. Factions and living worlds. Hey all, how do you manage factions and keeping a world feel alive / existing outside the players in your game? I run a sandboxy game that has lots of elements that I leave up to chance and random generation. I'm looking for an easy way to keep the world around the players fluid and existing in its own right. I would ideally be looking for something with some level of random generation, leaving it up to dice and context to drive things forward. I own a copy of Worlds Without Numbers, and while I use it for some world building, I find the faction stuff a little too complicated for practical use for my case. Of course, I have different layers of factions, people the players interact with, as well as general world events the characters don't have sway over, but that I also would like to abstract from myself and not have to dictate the course of events or the rate at which they unfold, if that makes sense. I have some elements of a faction system in place, which involve a question and answer system and utilizes clock mechanics from Blade in the Dark to a certain degree, but that's for more player adjacent stuff. Anyway, I hope this question makes sense. Feel free to ask for clarification. Okay, so I don't think I have a single one particular thing for factions. I mean, there is just tracking involved. Yeah, you could use sheets, tabs, tables in an Excel chart to figure out where your factions are. You can assign dice to things. So one thing that you can do is if you have, let's say, short-term or you could say easily attainable goals, longer term or medium attainable goals, maybe long-term, small, unlikely attainable goals, or at least without repeated effort, and then maybe even some kind of overwhelming goal that's on its own is very unlikely to be attainable, at least not without a bunch of other stuff hitting first. And then you could assign those essentially dice. So let's say at the top end, you've got a D100, then maybe you go to a D20, then you go to a D12, then you go to a D8, D6 down the line. And on different intervals of time, and you could spread those out. So maybe for those on the D4, which might be, hey, these are the ones that they're really likely to get, and they're very close to getting, and it's very well within their reach to get. It's a D4, and you can roll it, say, weekly. And if you hit a 4, they've achieved that part of their goal, and you can have thought about what are the consequences of achieving that goal, and then everything else can move down a step. So to put in an example, let's say at the top end you have summoning Orcus, and then at the very bottom you have finding a base of operations. Maybe you have above that gain the influence of a local lord, and above that, I'm not sure what I would find, certain artifacts. Above that, find the evil book of Orcus, and then finally, maybe right after that, let's just say for this example, summon Orcus, make a portal for Orcus to enter the world. as they're fulfilling these things, you start off with Orcus being a D100. So you would have to roll a 100, and you would maybe only roll this thing once every 6 months, once a year, whatever. It might be a large time span. So you wouldn't even roll it for a while, right? But as they are accomplishing those other goals, you can see here we've created almost a tree. If they complete the first few goals, suddenly the D100 is dropped down to a D20. And now you have a 5% chance every month, let's say, of doing it. Now it's much more attainable. Then you get down to, if they achieve a few more things, that's much more likely that in the very near future they're going to do this. And of course, what the players do, what the party does, can obviously interrupt these plans, and you might have to insert new ones. So you have your one plan, which is, hey, if everything goes fine for this cult, nobody stops anything, nobody imposes any other obstacles in their way, then yeah, they're just going to get the straight line. And after at a certain point, boom, 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 they're going to get, okay, summon Orcus, and eventually they'll roll what they need to, and boom, it's done. But the party, of course, is doing stuff. They need to get certain artifacts, but the party got there first. So now they have to try to research some other artifacts or research something else. And then that bumps everything back up. Maybe the party has done something else, deposed the local lord that they got influenced. And now they got to find somebody else, and that bumps everything back up again. So you can have this kind of ebb and flow of how their goals are doing. But I haven't found a system that I would say is just like, wow, this just puts everything in there. You kind of got to find one. Well, we will look in the comments. Maybe the comments here, there'll be some amazing system. I haven't found it yet, but that kind of stuff works for me. To me, it's all about just organizing it in a way and assigning whatever mechanic you want to adjudicating things so that it makes sense. Let's see. Terrence says, I'm supposed to post our links all over, but I get lazy. Yeah, I get lazy. I get lazy too. No Fun Allowed says, I love incrementing dice, which is why I love Dungeon Crawl Classics. They do D3, D4, D5, D6, D7, D8, D10, D12, D14, D16, D20, D24, and D30. Yeah, that's a lot of increment. I have a DCC. I guess I must have a D30 because I think I do have a set of DCC dice that I got at some point. Yeah. And, or, you don't have to use incrementing dice if you want to use something else. It just, whatever you're comfortable with. And of course, given that you can use electronic die rollers that have no limit to the amount of, however you want to engineer your dice. If you want to have 144, 1 in 144 instead of 1 in 100, if you want to have a D27, you can do that, right? So it really is up to finding what you're comfortable with. Let's dig into these comments and see if any of these are helpful to us. Emerance, is that Lawful Neutral 23, who's got the highest rated comment. Let's see, he shares a link to a generator. It comes up with a faction and details, at the very least, a good place to start. We could take a look at that just as a quick aside, since this is on the Chaotic Shiny website. So this one, let's just see this one that they made. The generated faction called the Icy Sigil. It's a faction of assassins. Their motivation is glory. Their influence, below average. Their reputation is awful. They're somewhat old. Their, I guess, the individual leadership, I guess that means they don't have maybe they don't have one overall leader, but they're mostly, I'm not sure what that would mean, because it is a faction. So I imagine they must have some organization, but maybe it's, I don't know. I'm not sure what that means. It is a small faction, but it is very stable. They don't have a lot of enemies. They have no allies. Or they don't have a lot of enemies, but they do have a few, which are some nobles and some merchants, but they have almost unlimited resources, and they go into that. That's kind of cool. Current leadership chosen by the previous leader. Okay. I mean, this is kind of nice stuff. I will throw this in the chat also. This is the Chaotic Shiny Action Generator. That's cool. I mean, you can always take the stuff and rip out the things you like, right? You write the stuff that doesn't work for you. Okay, back here. Let's see. V Donut said, the one time someone complimented me of, quote, feeling like the game was alive outside of players' adventures, unquote, was when I finally abandoned random generation of things, decided to just check things out. Like, establish some factions or events that may come up. Then make boxes next to them with their drives, influences, and stuff. From time to time, just take a look at your paper and think, what would have happened? Example, I had my players in a city doing chores for town militia, investigating intrigues of chaos cult. I wanted to spice things up, so I said there was local tension of 3 main religions. The missions could influence some decisions, but barely. And then I guess he's got, let's see, I'll skip, well, let's see, Stag God. Then he's got some, are those supposed to be the check boxes? Infiltrated by cult, conspiring against local duke, discrediting new god, absorbing wild god. Then you have the new god, anti-Stag God outcry, divine intervention, full power inquisition. And then the oldest god, last effort, domestic revolution, setting their own militia. Okay, so I guess maybe these are the options that each one of them had. In the end, I decided the Stags were fully infiltrated, discredited new godders, which in turn organized outcry and even summoned pitchforks and torches. I remember while players were hiding for 3 days in some tavern basement, when they went out, there was almost all-out war between religious groups that had nothing to do with their missions. Oldest priest didn't even do anything in the end, yet it created this feeling of independency. It doesn't have to be a lot of factions, maybe a general feel of the place, somewhere where tensions come from, and there don't have to be much of a goal they have to achieve. Sometimes just discovery of rich iron deposits, lowering price of tools will be enough to hint the world is moving out there. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with this approach. I think obviously if you feel like there's something that should happen with these factions you've set up, then you should just make it happen, right? You don't have to randomly do it if you feel like there's a good chance that over this amount of time with this amount of resources they have that they should have accomplished this, that, or the other. I just like the randomness because I like to be kind of surprised by the results as much as the party does. And sometimes you get some interesting things where the thing you thought was the most likely to happen doesn't in fact happen, and something else somewhere else that had very little chance of succeeding happens. And I like those kinds of serendipitous things. And they don't tend to be the ones that are going to come up in my brain. But of course, as always, they should feel to the players that it's all happening in the context, right? It shouldn't come out of nowhere like, oh, something crazy just dropped from the sky. It should feel like, oh, wow, this was an interesting turn of events. I wonder what things behind the scenes created the conditions for which this thing happens. Let's see. Sectorious. This will maybe be the last one that I read out of this one. How I've run factions in simple ways in the past. 1, flesh out the faction a bit, thinking about their assets and goals. Name 3 to 4 important NPCs in that faction. Assigning some actual faces and personalities makes them feel, or makes them far less abstract. It becomes less the Galathian legions have invaded Endstone, and more General Atticus of Galath and his Blue Legion have invaded Endstone. Make a D8 table of potential developments, actions, or behaviors for each faction. These would probably tie into their general goal, or they might be something like internal struggles or events that keep them from moving as they want to. An 8 die roll indicates a general faction event. Make a D6 table of general faction events, stuff like leadership changes, defections, general problems all factions need to deal with. Roll once or twice, depending on your preference, each month for each faction. Interpret results and implement rewrite tables and goals as needed. That's the quick and dirty of it. Yeah, I like that. Another thing I would say that doesn't often get brought up when you think about factions in the real world, they're not just takers. In other words, a lot of times in fantasy, you think about, well, these guys, this faction, the Thieves Guild, right? So they thieve. And I suppose if you need something stolen, maybe, I don't know how they're supposed to work with other factions, but basically they're thief. And if you're thieving, they want to cut. But what do they provide to people? When you think about organized crime, they provide services to people. They provide things which are illicit, whether it's drugs or it's alcohol or it's gambling or it's sex trade or it's something else or it is violence, right? They provide that. So even though their goals, and of course, the mafiosos, their goals are essentially just to get rich and stay in control. So it makes sense they give and take. But I would even say if you had a cult, like the cult of Summon Orcus, they have to support their operations, right? We think about, well, they're going to do all this stuff leading to Orcus getting summoned. They have to be able to support themselves that whole time. They have to be able to spend money on resources. They have to feed their members. They have to potentially bribe officials to make things pass. They can't just go and kill everybody for everything they need. They might need to buy a manuscript or a book or an artifact. Maybe that the person who currently owns it doesn't know its true value, but maybe they need to buy it. They might need to buy resonances. They might need to do all kinds of things that require money. And then you have to think about, well, where are they getting the money from? They could have a very rich benefactor that might cover part of it. maybe they do something. Maybe they are good assassins in their own right, and so essentially they function as an assassins guild. Maybe their clerics create potions of some kind or poisons of some kind. That could also be something. But it's an interesting way to think about that part of the web, because I think it often gets forgotten. We just think about these factions kind of doing what they do and not thinking about, well, how do they support themselves? Because maybe the Thieves Guild, you could say, well, they're just constantly thieving, so they're kind of generating their own income. Sure, maybe that works for them, but it doesn't work for a lot of other guilds that are more esoteric, or their goals aren't commercial, like we might think of as a mafia. So it might be interesting to think of is, how do they make their money? How are they getting communities to be okay with them? Sure, in some places they may just be able to threaten folks, but that can't be the only thing. And if we look at in kind of the real way things work, is they generally have some kind of input into the economy. They maybe provide a service that other people won't, or they have some other way that they're involved. But it might be an interesting way to not only give them, it makes them a little more three-dimensional. It also gives the party different ways to interact with them. When you think about the kind of tropes you find in narratives in which the party has to infiltrate the gang, maybe they pretend that they're going to buy potions. Maybe they're pretending they need to hawk their grandmother's jewelry, and it's one of those artifacts, whatever. Like, it opens up a lot of more avenues for the players to interact with this faction if the faction has linkages into the society. Other than that, they're just lurking below some ruin trying to summon a demon god. Fred Daniel, hi, nice to see you. Terrorists sell opium, hacking the networks, and steal and ransom to support themselves. Do they provide a service? I would say that the opium is a service. People like drugs. I would say don't take opium, but opium is a drug. Hacking networks, I think when we look at what a lot of these groups are doing, you think about their sponsors. I think a lot of these groups aren't just doing it. Whoops, I'm having connection issues. Hopefully it's all right. If you think about some groups position themselves as sort of nations of their own right there, or like ISIS, I guess you would say, or ISIL, whatever, we're saying that they're a nation. They might be operating out of their own, maybe their own strategic goals, but a lot of other things will be working for sponsor nations. When you talk about, say, in the United States, if you're in the United States, you hear about terrorists that the government would link to Iran or China or these other groups, right? And they are essentially saying that they're doing some things for hire, that China is using these groups as fronts to conduct these attacks. Presumably, maybe they get weapons from China or money from China or whatever. And I'm sure the U.S. has probably done, the U.S. has done tons of dirt on its own, so I'm not trying to split hairs about which great powers are doing dirt, because they're all doing dirt. But I think you can really look at a lot of things and say, yeah, they have some kind of linkages. Doesn't mean that they're not just doing stuff on their own. Doesn't mean they're not just thieving, but there often is multiple things that are going on. And when you have those things, when you're kind of creating these webs, not only does it, again, give them more of a three-dimensionality, maybe the cult has to mind what somebody outside the cult tells them, because they need that person, need their resources, but it gives different ways for the party to interact. If they want to hurt the cult that's trying to summon orcas, and that cult is growing opium somewhere to sell to finance their efforts, then those opium fields are a pathway for the party to strike at that group indirectly. Take out the opium fields, cut off their supply, they cut off their supply of funds. That really damages them. So I think there's something there. Again, it's something you can play with. It definitely gets more complicated the more you drill in there, but it's something that you might be able to integrate, and it could be something that adds to your faction play in your game. All right, I think that's all I've got for this one. I already gave it a thumbs up. Okay, question about Baramaze. I don't know enough about Baramaze action. An action dungeon synth playlist. Give it a thumbs up. I'm not going to go in there. Recommend me a game based on AD&E 2nd edition. I don't really know one. Not that there aren't good ones, but I feel like, isn't that like Castles and Crusades? Isn't Castle and Crusades? Is that AD&E 2nd? I'm sure someone will post. I just don't keep up with it. Let's see. We've got a Giveaway for Scourge of the Iron or Scourge of the Scorn Lords. Why did I keep saying iron? Okay. Suggestions for a 5e player. That might be interesting. I'm curious about that. Posted by Captain Howdy. Well, howdy, Captain. I have a teenage cousin that has played nothing but 5e. I want to get him some books, module setter that would introduce him to the OSR. What 3 products would you give a person to give them a taste of OSR sweetness? Old Ranger says 5 Torches Deep, which I still need to look at. It seems like a pretty good bet. Someone else says they think they like Into the Unknown better. Let's see. And explaining why Into the Unknown is better. Fred Dan says for Golden Glory is ADD second. Thank you. That's another one that's on my list. I think that was, I'm not sure who pointed that out to me last week. But yeah, I need to look at for Golden Glory. Okay, so Red Lemon Ginger says, I think it's more complete game experience. I also think it does a better job as a transition between 5e and OSR. There are a lot of little things that bugged me about 5 Torches Deep. Like there are so many dead abilities in that game. There are some really cool ones and then some that are just there as filler, but the cool ones always get picked. So there's no point of having a choice in the first place. Might as well have just made cooler, more structured classes. I think 5 Torches Deep does a really good job of making intelligence better, though. Okay. All right. Into the Unknown sounds familiar, but it's not familiar enough for me to get digging on it. But okay. I'm trying to think. So if I was going to recommend, someone's coming from 5th edition, they want to give OSR a try. If I was going to recommend something for them to play, I'm not sure. Maybe Old School Essentials. I guess I feel like I'd need to know more about the person. I'd like to know more. Like, what are they trying to get into? Do they want to go kind of just have gonzo, kind of have fun? And then maybe something like Troika, which I thought was great for just kind of having a blast, just kind of ripping stuff up and just embracing some kind of silliness in these different things and running with it. But thereby kind of demonstrating sort of, look how much we can do with these kind of simplified sort of mechanics. Or would I look at something maybe more BX or AD&D focused that was more kind of on the campaign play and into domains and that sort of thing and kind of more grounded? I'm not sure. There's so many options now. I still need to read that Worlds Without Number because I think like that might be one that I would think about. Frederick Gork says, hi, Frederick. Black Hack. Yeah, Black Hack. Yeah, Black Hack might be a good one. I need to read through that one again. Gosh, there's so many. There's the White Hack. So many options. So many. I think it's one of those things too, and that's maybe why I'd go back to one of the more vanilla retro clones to start with, because so many of the OSR games are essentially, if you think of somebody who's played these games and they come up with some of their set of house rules, how they like to run things, and then they essentially take those house rule documents and turn them into a product. And that's fine, but in a sense, they're kind of opinionated. Like they like certain things about the OSR, so they push in that way. They dislike certain things about the OSR, and so they'll minimize it and take it away. I might like for someone just to get that kind of vanilla approach and just kind of say, here, see it. Maybe instead of getting them something, maybe I would run them in something first and say, hey, if you like this, then, or say maybe afterwards, well, which parts of this did you like? If you just liked kind of the run and gun, whatever, then hey, maybe we'll go this way. If you really was getting into the idea of rising up through the ranks and getting a castle and doing that stuff, or a tower, and kind of that's how you want to do, then maybe we'll go this way. Or if you liked just being on the road as an adventurer, dungeoneer, whatever, then maybe we'll go, this way. So I kind of feel like that's what I would go. Instead of just saying to the kid, like, hey, here are some books, go to, I might run them through a couple things and kind of see what they like. And then buy from there, in which case I would probably run them through something fairly unopinionated as a start, as to kind of get that baseline, get a nice baseline. That's a good question, though. Nice to see. Okay, looking for details on Mistar outside of Gazetteers. I have no information on that. Okay, an OSR-ish one-page RPG. Do we want to look at someone's OSR-ish one-page RPG? Posted by Trick Ganache. First, let me upvote it. Oh, it's going to go to Google Drive. Is this really one page? Okay, well, technically it's 2 pages, but maybe they mean once they, because they obviously could crunch this down and typeset into 1 page. It's called Monster Type: Human. It's about being the most dangerous monsters there are, humans. Mystara 5e seems stalled out again. Yeah, it's a shame. I talked to, what's his name, Glenn, I think, who was doing the Mystara project for the RPG Breakfast Club a long time ago. It's kind of for him, it's sort of a labor of love, and he's doing it. I think he was hoping to, Taryn says his Mr. Welch's entire YouTube channel. Yes, well, you can go to YouTube and get all that. But YouTube's not great, I feel like, for reference material, because I don't know, I don't find anyway. Like, what am I going to do if I need something? I'm going to, in the middle of a game, I'm going to run to a video. If this person goes and searches for it, hopefully they'll find stuff out there. Heck, maybe he can email and just get a copy of the book. I don't know if that's feasible or not, but it's a shame it's not getting. Like I said, I think he was hoping to get the treatment, or just to get wizards that were kind of going to jump on and say, "Oh, great, another person has taken one of these settings and basically done all the work for us, and we'll put it up." But wizards might not be, particularly interested. I'm not sure what the thinking is at Wizards. I'm torn, because I know there are all these settings that people love, but I kind of feel like Wizards is doing what's best for Wizards in a way. Like, I can't hate on them for doing it. I know people they should adapt all the settings and all this stuff, but you just get so much confusion in the marketplace, and there's so much out there already from fan-made stuff on DM's Guild, whatever. I think it's really wise, just from a business standpoint, is to concentrate on a single setting that basically everything's going to work. And then, there's selected other things, and I think they've been really smart about the ones that they've kind of put forward. Obviously, Critical Role is huge, so investing in kind of the Critical Role setting, having that. Magic the Gathering is huge, and of course they own that, so why not try to find linkages there? Like, these things make sense. And then maybe as a fan, why haven't they brought over I don't know, why haven't they brought over this setting or that setting or this, whatever. But honestly, for the most part, I think these are pretty niche. I think some of these things would come out, and you open yourself up to all kinds of criticism, like happens whenever they kind of redo stuff. Oh, I can't believe, this is no longer this, or this has changed, that's changed. It doesn't fragment the player base. I don't know. I just think that unfortunately, I feel like as a business, as much as I would love to see this stuff out here, just as a consumer, I can kind of see why they're probably thinking we don't need to go down the same path that they did in 2nd edition and into 3rd edition with just a bunch of different stuff. Like, let's just concentrate, or maybe 3rd edition is where they finally narrow it down and say, we're just going to do Forgotten Realms for the most part. So it's a shame on the one hand, but I get it. And I feel like the Mystara, someone should just take all the Mystara stuff and just make like Nistara, Mustira, and publish it all out there, and let people just play it in a close enough, but just different enough to not get into sort of copyright, whatever issues, and get that out there. Back to Monster Type: Human. Frederick Work says Arcanum 30th anniversary has a free SRD for download. Well, there you go. Do that. Okay, so you're going to play as a human. You will face many other monsters of varying traits who will seek your treasure hoard, but you will overcome all of them or die most painful deaths. 6 attributes: savagery, cunning, quickness, imagination, trust, and judgment. You have 1d6. Roll for 1 being the attribute that most represents you, up to 6 being the attribute you most need to work on. If you roll the same number more than once, record the next highest available number. Does that mean you're going to... there's 6, and you're gonna, okay, so I guess you're gonna roll a die. You're basically gonna get 1 value for each pip on the dice. You're gonna get a 1, a 2, 3, a 4, a 5, and a 6, but you can't assemble those yourselves. You have to polish them. It might be better just to roll for, just number the 6 attributes, and then when you roll whichever one, just put the 6 and then go for the 5, go for the 4, go for the 3, go for the 2, go for the 1, whatever. It might be a little bit less confusing. 12 skills: locksmithing, swordplay, wizardry, climbing, apothecary, alchemy, clericalism, axecraft, mercantile, archery, shield, combat, linguistics. Let's see. Nothing says WotC does what makes money, but it's expanding the hobby. TSR sometimes tried to make interesting stuff for the hobby, but turns out that doesn't work out great for business. Yes. Hopefully at some point they'll find this middle ground where you kind of make interesting stuff for the hobby that also makes you money. Or maybe you can have kind of like what do you call it? Like book publishers will have different imprints, or movie studios will have, here's the studio that's basically putting out your Marvel style blockbusters, and then here's the other studio that's going to put out kind of arts films and awards fodder. It'd be nice if they had something where you say, okay, here's where we're going to put all our mass market appeal to the broadest base, and just that's what it is. And then here's this other thing that we're going to kind of fiddle with over here that's going to be more interesting, nuanced, maybe for folks who are getting a little tired of that other thing, right? We can kind of appeal to both. But of course, that's also, I mean, look, if you're a creator out there, you kind of hope they don't do that, because you're hoping that's the niche you can fill. You're not going to be able to fill the mass market explosion part, but you can fill that other one, and they've kind of left that gap for you. So maybe the answer is just go with all the smaller creators out there who are putting out the stuff that's in that area. But you can't fault them for trying to make money, Frederick Gore says what they made money on was computer games. Are we talking TSR or WotC? I played was it Pool of Radiance back in the day? Was that based on second edition? Their first edition? I don't remember. It was a lot of fun, but boy, it was a grind. Now they're back in the computer game biz. I mean, look, there are going to be, I don't know the economic terms, whatever, vertically integrated, horizontal. They're going to try to make money wherever they can. I mean, Dark Alliance looked awful, and I haven't bought it. And the reviews are just the YouTube thumbnails that I saw of people who had gotten into it and reviewed it. It seemed awful. I mean, it's awful. That's one of those things that I just don't. I guess I'm going to dispense with this because frankly, I'm not all that interested in it. I thought maybe more interesting, but I'm not. So I'm just going to close it, but I'm going to give it thumbs up to Draft Monster Type Human. I mean, look, some things just look bad, and the trailer, even though I saw people react to it online, some people were saying like, oh, it looks badass. It's like, it looked crummy. And so it was no surprise to me that it was crummy. So hopefully they got their licensing fee up front from that developer, because man, that was bad. I did like the old Pool of Radiance, Pool of Darkness. Even there was another one called Hillsfar, which is kind of full of mini games. That was sort of fun. I'm probably dating myself with that reference. Frederick Ork says PC games are 40% of the Mystara lore world. Okay. I mean, I don't know. That's fine. Unfortunately, they've moved on. I mean, I would love if they kind of made some of those games. I guess that's what kind of Baldur's Gate and whatever were really kind of better, more advanced at the time than the kind of Pool of Radiance stuff. But though I was a kid back then, I could spend hours and hours. I mean, you get these things at Pool of Radiance, which they had the turn-by-turn combat where each combatant would go, and you'd get in these situations, like if you ever went into one of the tavern in the town and started a fight, which you could do, there was an option there, start a fight. If you started a fight in there's like 1 million people, and your computer could literally sit there for hours because it would sim out each person's move and then move them and attack, and the next person move, and there's like 100 people in there. Even though it's going fast, you could kind of hit it on fast mode. It would still take forever. But I was a kid. I had time for all that. Now I would just Control Alt Delete and get the heck out. But all right, we got, let's see, Sword Quest. I will upvote, though I'm not going to dig in there yet. I need some questions here. Why are there not questions? Okay, we got Dune, Mad Max, and Morkborg. All right, I haven't read Morkborg yet. I will upvote it, but I am curious. This was posted by Carrot View 3D. Oh, it's a poll. Oh, let's see. If I was to make a setting that combined the feel of Dune and Mad Max into a Morkborg-inspired setting and created a vehicle rule set, should it be a module for Morkborg, or should it have its own rule set? Hey, Oval Team Patrol. I used to enjoy Unlimited Adventures. It was a toolkit that let the user-made gold box style adventures based on the Pools of Darkness engine. There were a lot of user-made modules. Man, I must have missed that because I don't remember that at all. And I had one of the other like RPG construction kits games, which was really just wacky. I got no dog in that fight over modules for Mort Borg. So I gave them an upvote. So I'm just going to back out, not waste my time going any further with that. New to OSR, Advanced OSE. I really don't know enough about Advanced OSE to say anything. Does anyone play with a caller in their game? I don't. Well, I only have 3 players, so they don't. It's not so much a caller as the one of the 3 who acts first. Okay, so here we got this is going to go out to a blog, but it seems interesting. It's about camping. An ongoing series about overland travel. I will post this in the chat so folks can take a look. Let's see. This is part 3. Well, let's see. If this part is good, then maybe I'll go back and look at the other parts. Elber 711, nice to see you, says they ran Morkborg once, and I'd have to say that was enough. I've heard that too. I've heard definitely mixed things on Morkborg, but I just need to give it a read. I will probably do it on the channel. Nothing. And says, I've never understood having computer games use tabletop role-playing game mechanics. Mechanics are the one thing PC RPGs can do better. Yeah, the Pool of Radiance stuff, though, that was fairly early on in having computer games that could do, kind of anything. And it was novel. I have to say, at the time, it was novel. Now, it's fine. I just think that now computer art, they should be taking a lot more things. It shouldn't just be, say, a 5th edition engine, because part of the thing with a tabletop role-playing games you have to do is you can have all these mechanics, but they have to simplify down to something that's feasible to run any given set of time. It's presumably in person, but in a live setting, right? So you could say, take all the stuff from the 1E DM&G, and you can have weapon speeds, and you can have this, and you can have different weapons affecting different armors, and then the speeds, and then the length and the weight, right? You could have all that stuff, but it just gets at some point. And some people used to run 1st edition with all the mods, all the different rules from the DMG in there, and God's bless you. I never did it. But even given them, at a certain point, you just run out of space and time and mind share. Computers, though, they can do all that stuff in, blink of an eye. They have all that written for you. So I would imagine if you wanted to go deep into that I would want to go in deep and get all that stuff figured into and not limit yourself just to what the tabletop rules are, because the tabletop rules have a whole different set of limitations and necessities and things that a computer one doesn't have. Okay, so this is posted by Sword Person, posted a couple days ago. Overland Travel Part 3 Camp. Continuing along with my series on the house rule supplement I use for overland travel, we come to Part 4 where I'll go over the house rules for making. Again, my design goal here was to create interesting choices for players by limiting what they're able to accomplish. Following a normal day of travel, 3 watches, each character will usually want to sleep 2 watches to avoid incurring penalties. This leaves 1 watch free for players to make choices about what they want their characters to do. For spellcasters who need to regain some of their spells, the choice should usually be pretty easy. Spend the 4 hours it takes praying or studying to regain your spells. For all other characters, they will need to make a choice about what they find the most important. There are essentially 3 options on what to spend time on: watch, foraging, or healing. At least 2 characters need to keep watch throughout the night if a party wants to be able to detect wandering monsters. This is a pretty straightforward decision unless your party doesn't have enough members to accomplish all the other tasks they'd like to get done. So I think of, I guess 3 watches. It's like with my 3-man crew, we do 3-person watches. So I guess that works, but this is kind of assuming you have a lot of people, because if you're doing 2 people on a watch for 3 watches, you're having 6. That's assuming you have 6 people, and then extra if some people are going to be doing other things during that time. So if you have 2 people on watch and then someone else is going to do something else and not watch, then, that's a lot of people. I don't know if they mean that you're going to be using your hirelings to do some of the watching for you. We'll see. Let's keep going. Typically in retro clones, you roll for all the characters as a group, but the whole point of my system is to create difficult choices for players. So I've changed foraging into an action each player needs to take separately. The main advantage of foraging to foraging is actually finding water, not food. Most groups will bring some amount of rations when they travel, but with my house rules, characters each need to drink 3 water skins worth of water every day, making it easy to incur penalties if you don't find a source of water. Unless a party is carrying enough water, they can fail to forage for a day and still have enough. The safe bet is to send 2 or more characters foraging. Carrying water skins essentially gives you insurance against failing to forage. Well, that's great, but I guess the one thing I'm confused about is, are watches part of the day and night? Because you're not typically going foraging at night. That is potentially a disaster waiting to happen. You would forage while you're moving. And I think if you folks who haven't seen, when I took a look at the One Ring last night, right, they have one of the roles that you can take on is essentially that forager, which makes a lot of sense, but I'm not sure what that has to do with camping, because typically you're camping in the evening, so you don't have all that much time, and by the time you're getting to, you've done all your unpacking, whatever you're unpack, you've put out your bedrolls, you've eaten your dinner. I mean, unless you're in the land of the 24-hour sun, it's going to be dark, and then you're probably not going to want to send some poor sap or even 2 out there in the dark to try to find water or something else. Let's see. As per standard rules in BX and most retro clones, HP gain from natural healing is very slow. It is indeed. In my house rules, I've opted to include additional healing options through specialists. The first healing specialist is the cook, who can prepare food that heals 1 to 2 hit points per person, but usually 1. Let's see. Elber 711 says, I don't bother with camping watches anymore. I roll dice to see who is up, when, and if something happens. That's not a terrible way to do it. I like to ask for watches because I really just want to give the players the choice of who's doing what, and not feel like if I roll randomly and then pick someone randomly that person wasn't asleep. Like, I don't want that. I've had situations where people will argue with, hey, I shouldn't have been asleep. Wasn't I awake? Or, whatever. And it's like, I want them to have told me, hey, what is your plan? And then I do it. But if everyone's willing to just kind of hand wave it away and okay, each of us is going to take a watch and whatever, then yeah, that's fine. And sometimes different people in my group, they've tended to want watches at different times for various reasons. So they kind of want that, oh, I want that first part of the evening, or I want the last part of the night. So I like to let them do it. But it's certainly not a bad way to just abstract it all and say, okay, we split the watches up evenly between everybody, and it's on this person's watch that such and such happens. Okay, so we had the cook, heals 1 to 2 hit points per person, but usually 1. The main downside to the cook is that they need a fire in order to prepare food, which means the party either needs to carry firewood along, or some other character needs to spend a watch collecting firewood. The second healing specialist is the minstrel. So again, this thing with the spending a watch to collect firewood, you kind of need the fire before you're sending somebody. That's kind of, I think if I do the whole bit where you kind of have to have a fire to get healing and stuff, you have to have a warm hearth of some kind. That's kind of the minimum. You can't just sleep cold and get hit point. So that means you have to have kind of the fire is going before people start taking watches, in which case you've already collected the firewood. So I'm not sure about the spending a watch to collect firewood, but I like, in general, I like where their mind is. I'm just not sure about, I guess maybe I'll have to see the mechanics at the bottom, because the way they've structured this seems odd to me, but I might be missing something. The second healing specialist is the minstrel. Anyone who spends a watch listening to the minstrel's music gains 1 hit point. However, they can't perform any other activities while they're listening. The final healing specialist is the healer. They're probably the best option, healing a single person per day at 1d6 plus 1 hit points, but they're more expensive and therefore rarer using the economic availability rules than the other 2. They can't heal multiple people like the cook and the minstrel can. Unlike the other specialists, however, the healer doesn't need to spend a watch performing an activity, which frees them up to help with foraging, keeping watch, etc. So I do like these in the general sense. I like the idea of the cook who can cook stuff, though I think you could also give that to a PC. Maybe you could make that, as I've talked about, and kind of giving tags or cliches or whatever you want to call it, certain things, little extras. People, you could say that they can be the cook, or maybe you make it a role, and they can do that. The minstrels, I don't know. Like, it's kind of cool because like the music, the healing power of music. However, and maybe just roll with this, but usually my players, when they're camping out and other parties have been in, are not trying to make a lot of noise. You're trying to go undetected, which means you don't want some guy strumming a lute, singing songs about Sir Robin. You're wanting for essentially quiet. So that seems like I just can't see folks picking up on that. But maybe this person's game is different and runs differently, or again, I could be missing something. But it's kind of cool on the one hand, a little bit cheesy on the other hand, which is fine. But to me, there's just the element of, but who wants to have a minstrel singing at night when you're generally trying to not have things hear you? As you can see, these rules encourage bringing a larger party for travel, as you'll typically want at least 4 non-spellcasting characters along, 2 to keep watch and 2 foragers, as well as any characters needed to perform the tasks for healing or any additional tasks. This helps encourage players to hire retainers or bring along specials or mercenaries when traveling, and to set up a camp outside of any dungeons they explore in the wilderness. However, the more people brought along, the more expensive equipping and funding such an expedition will be. You need to supply your party with rations, water skins, traveling equipment, and the additional men and or mounts to carry it all along. All right. And then they basically have, he's got a table here. Well, he's got a document and a table. So the watches here, he's calling a watch breaks days and nights into 3 watches. Does that mean there's 3 watches? I kind of feel like maybe watches is not the right word they should use. It seems like maybe there's 6. You're breaking days and nights into 6 units. 3 units during the day, 3 units at night, which is not a bad thing. So I could definitely see doing that. Okay. Now, you're making an exploration roll. I'm not sure if they mean that's for getting lost. I'm not sure don't remember them defining what a wilderness exploration roll is. This might be something that need to be covered in one of their other articles. You got gear, you got camp action. So it's interesting. I think they need to just shuffle this around, because I think there's a lot of this. I think this could work very well with sort of the One Ring kind of system of giving folks roles. And in fact, it would be cool to extend the roles in the One Ring and think about, here are the roles while you're traveling, and here are your camping roles. And you can do different things. Maybe they rely on different abilities or skills, or if you're doing something like I've been going down the path of a little bit, is trying to use kits or anything to kind of give folks a little extra. Maybe you could say, oh, if you have a cooking skill, you'd be a great cook and you could do this. Or if you have this skill or this tag in your class or whatever in your background, you're better kind of at this element. Like, you could play around a lot with that. So there's stuff to like here, but I just think using the term watches, it's kind of breaking my brain a little bit, because I think like, why you can't go for firewood while you're doing your watches. That takes too much. And this seems to be a lot of people. And I don't mean as far as the retainers, but I mean, you need 2. I've never played with needing 2 people to keep watch at once. I don't think I can remember a game. Usually it's always you need to have 1 person. I get that 2 is more effective. And if someone had a system where it was like, hey, if you have 1 person on a watch, you're going to roll this. You have 2 people, you're going to roll something else. I could totally see that working, but requiring 2 means that to make this work, it seems to require a lot of people in your party, and that's before you get into kind of the healing specialists. I like the cook idea though. That's it. All right, so I did link to that, right? So yeah, folks can check that out. I might need to go back and look at some of the other parts of that series. Get taken up votes. Got another 1-page dungeon. Should we take a look at the 1-page dungeon? First, give an upvote. Okay, the Well of Blood, a 1-page dungeon. This is on the blog Foreign Planets. The Raid LC, nice to see you, says a watch was 4 hours for us. Oh, I see. So you could do 2 watches overnight. Yeah. That's another way to do it. So Raid LC, when you guys were doing watch, did you have 2 people in 2 shifts of 2 with those 4 hours, or did you have 1 person per 4 hours? I'm curious. All right. There we go. Shared in the chat. You've heard worrying news about your friend Bolster the Giant. He is trying to fill a well with his own blood. That's gross. He says he's doing it for his true love. Now he needs your help. The well isn't filling up properly. There must be a leak that needs to be plugged. That has to be the reason, right? Go down there and have a look. Okay, so this is for the 2021 1-page dungeon contest. If you just use a twist, Creatures both strange and tricks, traps, toys, magical items, villains, a boat on a lake of blood. It's interesting. Newfound allies, enemies who can become allies, a big jewel, and more. The dungeon comes with a simple hook for one-shot games, but can easily be inserted into a campaign play with rumors of a blood-soaked and love-crazed giant offering gold for assistance of adventurers. If you are a player, don't spoil this dungeon for yourself. Okay, so let's see. Can I click on this? Is it going? All right, so we're in. All right. Oh, so I like the drawing. All right, so we got a bunch. So I like this. So I like it. It's a very vertical dungeon, and I like the fact that it's got there's sort of a dash line showing the blood going down past through the well that has different levels of a dungeon in there until finally it looks like there's a giant. I gotta imagine that's a giant vampire bat of some kind. No, it's called Zerdix the Devil Bat. Is in there lapping it up. This is cool. I definitely like the artistry of the drawing. Let's see, the Well of Blood. Bolster has been deceived. He loves the vampire queen. The giant has been bewitched by hypnotic potion, and Ant's husband, the devil bat Zerdix, gluts himself on Bolster's blood. I mean, yeah, I wonder how long are we saying that you could just keep bleeding yourself before you just, died from blood loss. But that's cool. I posted that in the chat so you folks can go there and see that. I don't really have anything to share on that one. Oh, and I see it. I'm the only one. I was sharing I wasn't sharing the page in my browser with the window, so you guys aren't even seeing it. But look in there. There's a PDF, you can see it. Sorry about that. I forgot that since it opened up in a new window, it wasn't showing it in there. Well, let's get back. Okay, upvoted it. I kind of want to get one more in here. There's a mouse reader supplement. Favorite online generators. I'll upvote it, but I don't want to get into there. It's too much. I need something. I need one last good one to end the stream on. Oh, here we go. This might be good. The rule of reasonable. Oh, but then there's also this morale and mente. I might have to do two more. All right, let's see the rule of reasonable first. Oh, Red LC says, each got a perception roll that was actually on watch, so the more people watching, the more alert to danger. That's a good way to handle it. I also think you could do something, whereas the more people, so how I might do it, and just because I'm running a system that doesn't generally have perception rolls, is if a random encounter is going to come, whether it doesn't matter how many people are on watch. However, more people on watch, I might say when I'm rolling for distance, roll more dice and kind of use that advantage system. So if I'm rolling 3d6 times 10 for dice, saying 30 feet to 120 feet, if there are two people rolling, then maybe I would roll 5d6, keep the highest 3, right? And if there are 4 people watching more than that, so that it's essentially in a way simulating this idea that you have more eyes out, so you spot the danger from further away. Red LC says you could go without a lookout if you really couldn't manage it. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. If you go without a lookout, then the way I do it is basically everything's just on top of you because you're essentially asleep, and by the time you wake up, they're there. Okay, so here's this post. The rule of reasonable by Muthulan. Thought. If a player asks me, does your OSR, which in their case is Knave in Stonehell currently, game use the rule of cool, I would say no. But I might go on and say it does use the rule of reasonable. If a player suggests an action that is reasonable in context and that could well succeed, then generally let them succeed and experience the reasonable consequences that follow from that success. If a player suggests an action that is possible but unlikely in context, have them make a roll of some kind. In their case, in Knave, they give them a standard save using a relevant ability score where a normal 1 hit die person would have a 25% chance. Thoughts? Is this consistent with how you work? I mean, the rule reasonable, I feel like, is just the rule of playing old school OSR games. I mean, that's kind of it. If you figure out it's reasonable, and I mean, I would say for the first one, hey, if it's reasonable, yeah, it's reasonable. And then what are the pressures? It's reasonable, and there's no time, no constraints, no pressure on success. Then let it run. The more pressure they might be under success, the more I might think about having them roll. If they don't, then take extra steps to mitigate it. So, for instance, if they're climbing a rope up to the treehouse in their backyard, I'm not going to make them roll for it. If they're climbing a rope and there's a pit of lava beneath them and there are devils a couple of steps behind them, I might make them roll for it, unless if they're a thief, well, I would say, okay, they've got special abilities, so I'm not going to make them roll, but everyone else, you're going to roll, unless you can give me some kind of mitigating factor in the fiction of what you have, what you're doing, that would just make it easy, because now you've got a lot of, pressure on you. Yeah, as far as possible and unlikely, sure. But I think when, you have them roll. But I think for rule of cool is usually stuff that's more fun than, and maybe not explicitly impossible, but maybe highly unlikely, but it's fun. And I think you can use that in an OSR game. Certainly, I just think it ends up being toned down because they don't have as much powers usually. So they can't do too much because they don't have enough things. If you're a fighter in an OSR game, you essentially can just fight. So yeah, you could do stuff like I swing on the chandelier, sure, but you swing on the chandelier, great, but you can't chain together the events of, well, I'm going to use this ability and then tie it in with this ability and add this ability to do some kind of craziness, because you don't have them. I mean, even wizards and things have only so many spells, so many spell slots. There's just generally, you don't have to me, when the rule of cool sometimes gets outrageous in both good and bad ways, is where you have all these different abilities and you find these weird synergies in the moment that work. And in an OSR game, you tend not to have as much of that ammunition to make those things happen, so you don't have to worry about it so much. But that's me. Let's see. Raid LC, going back to the watches, says you could do it like a number in 6. Bandits keep depending on how many lookouts for danger. Yep. So I don't have a particularly a rule of coolness for OSR, other than my general thing. When I did a video on that a while back, is I want folks to invest in it. So in a 5th edition sense, I like the idea of tying inspiration dice to rule of cool. So you want to do something that's above and beyond that we're all acknowledging is kind of a stretch of everything, then spend an inspiration die to get it. The nice thing about that is inspiration, it's a mechanic that's already in the game, which doesn't have a lot of uses, frankly. This is another use for it, which I think is helpful. It also means that players can't stockpile them. You can only have, I think you're only supposed to have 1 at a time. So on a given session, how many inspiration dice are you going to blow through? Maybe you can get 2, depending on your GM, how often they're doing it. But if you're generally only going to get once a session, that means you're going to have to figure out, if you want to save it for rule of cool, you got to save it. And then of course you can't use it for advantage. You can't use it for some other things. So I like that. It's kind of tied to a currency. In an OSR kind of game where we don't have inspiration, they already kind of give you the tools. I think I don't have the book in front of me, but if you go and read the DM side of the basic expert book, they talk about basically just using percentile dice is, hey, give people a chance, which would say that unless it's, if it's impossible, it's impossible. I jumped to the moon, I'm going to give you a chance. No. But if it's like, well, they were super lucky they could do it, then give them a chance, right? And that could mean essentially saying, when you can't figure out the right ability or nothing seems right, you don't want to make it just a strength check. You don't want to do this. You could just say you have a 2% chance of making that jump or doing that thing, and you just roll the dice. And they roll they roll a D100 and hey, or 2 D10s, whatever percentile, and they either get it and they make the jump or they don't, and whatever happens because they missed the jump happens. R. Fisher said, this kind of conflates 2 different issues for me. 1, don't roll unless the outcome is significantly uncertain. And for them, they say this might be, for me, the most important lesson I learned about the hobby, the biggest dividing line between my stumbling along to my almost knowing what I'm doing. Although it is moderated by the idea from the Rhesus companion. Hey, you can check out the Rhesus video I did if you're interested in that, though I didn't cover the companion. Sometimes a roll can be about how to describe the auto success or auto failure because it's fun to roll dice. 2, always give an idea a chance of working if it is cool. Typically, I run a more grounded game where cool does not override reasonable. For rule 1 and 2, though, it depends on the game. When I'm running Toon, it's about rolling for an eye, everything, and the rule of funny. Yeah, that makes sense. Radel C says, Superhero 5e versus Everyman OSR will be toned to the flavor of the game as far as rule cool. Right. So if you're essentially just a slight upgrade on a peasant, what's cool in that context is vastly different than if you're Spider-Man. Yeah, I feel like the Muthulan might not exactly get what rule of cool is, because you can have both the rule of reasonable and the rule of cool. They're not mutually exclusive, but it's not a bad conversation to get into. Rule of cool is definitely one of those things that divides people. I don't like the evangelists who just say, well, you just make it happen because it's cool. I think if you're going to do rule of cool, it should fit the setting and the tone. I don't care if I've established that there's black powder and that something else. That doesn't mean that I want players to build rockets. Like if that's not part of my setting, I don't want it. Then you're not building rockets. And I shouldn't just let it go because it's cool, because the setting is kind of like, it's the bedrock, is the thing I sold everybody on. If I'm playing Lord of the Rings and Saruman has black powder or some kind of weird magic-y black powder stuff like he uses at Helm's Deep, that doesn't mean I want the players building rockets, because building rockets and doing that is kind of antithetical to the Lord of the Rings setting that we've all agreed to play. All right. I don't have castles in Tillian, so I'm not sure if they're going to put this table in here. Okay. So I don't have that, so I can't comment. OSR or Shadow of the Demon Lord. Oh, they're very different. Very different. All right, Land of Legends Fairy. I'm going to be taking a look at that. I did some of the other Land of Legends, or I did one of the other Land of Legends on the jam. Well, on the channel. Check that out, I guess, from a week or two ago. All right, I'm going to go look at the next page briefly. If I can't find anything, then I'll just call it a stream. Okay, here we go. A new take on Storm Giants. This has got to be good, right? Oh, I like the image. All right, so there's these. This is the new take on Storm Giants. Let me know. Let's see what we think about this. Built by the Cloud Giants, Storm Giants are walking towers plated in gold. They absorb the energy of lightning storms and save it in their huge frames until the flying cities of the Cloud Giants dock at them and absorb that energy to maintain flight. Or at least that's what they used to do. The Cloud Giants are long gone, and crumbling ruins atop the mountains and at the bottoms of the ocean are all that remain of their sky cities. Some of the Storm Giants remain functional, wandering lost around the vast desert of Soraka or the bone wastes of Tusker Vool. Several have been repurposed by enterprising wizards and turned into armor for blue dragons, turning them into massive lightning siege cannons, equal parts prisoner and war machine. Most are still long stripped of their gold plate and overrun by fiends seeking shelter. They are nothing but a memory of the Cloud Giants' hubris. Oh, this is also by Better Legends, right? All right. I mean, it's a great image. I don't know. What do you think? Storm Giants as batteries for Cloud Giant cities? Kind of cool. Definitely different. What's that game where, oh, I don't remember, where you were like the boy and you had to climb all those giants running around in kind of a really big open world? Ico? Was that it? Ico? I think it was Ico. All right, so we're going to call that a wrap for today. Ovaltine Patrol says, kind of neat. Yeah, it is kind of neat. I don't know if I'll use it myself. I might repurpose it, though. I kind of like my giants. So I don't know if I want Cloud Giants to be extinct, though. I don't know about the flying. I don't usually do the flying cities spiel, but I could. All right, that's all I got for today. Thanks, everybody who joined in and joined along. Hey, if you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Helps me out. You can get notified of things going on. Give a thumbs up if you enjoyed the stream. That also helps me a lot. I should be streaming tomorrow. I did post a tentative schedule to my YouTube channel's community tabs. You can check that out. Ovaltine Patrol says Shadow of the Colossus. Thank you. I had the wrong game. I think if everything goes according to plans, I should be talking to Bandits Keep, Daniel from Bandits Keep, tomorrow. I'm not sure what the topic will be. It might be on Undead. I think that's what I pitched to him. So we might be chatting about Undead, but it might be something else. So stay tuned for that. Have a great rest of your day, night, weekend, week, whenever you are watching or listening to this, if it's now, if it's later. Cheers, everybody. Game on. Talk to you later. Oh, wait, I'll see. If there's just slight danger, but still a chance, we would do a rule call. Just don't roll a 1. It was fun in situations like rope bridge type stuff or jumping reasonable ledges. Yes, I did. I've used that too. And lots of games I use that where you make a roll and it was like, just don't Just don't roll 1. 5% chance of something really horrible happening. That is actually good. So I'm glad I got that. Later, everybody. Game on. Talk to you soon.